Stop, breathe, and don't skip this video. Today I'm going to take you to one of the most intense and most ignored scenes in the entire Bible. The moment when the entire sky goes silent because no one is worthy to open a sealed book. And I'll warn you, this is not religious curiosity. This is a message about authority, fear, truth, and the kind of presence that makes a human being fall to the ground. If you've stayed until now, I ask you one thing. Watch as if it were a movie, because that's how John describes it. And the question that opens everything is simple and devastating. Who is worthy? I want you to imagine the scene. A book, a scroll, written inside and out, and it is sealed, 7 seals. It's not an aesthetic detail. It's a symbol of something that is locked, something that exists, but cannot yet be revealed. And the question echoes like an announcement that crosses reality. Who is worthy to open the book and break the seals? And then comes the part that many people don't notice. It's not who is strong, it's who is worthy. And when the question is worthiness, the entire universe is exposed. John describes it as if it were a total sweep. Heaven, earth, under the earth. Kings, wise men, powerful, humble, nothing. And suddenly, the text is not just theological, it becomes human. Because John cries. He doesn't describe an intellectual debate. He describes a collapse. He cries because he realizes what this means. If no one can open, if no one can look, then everything stays closed forever. The story remains locked. The meaning remains sealed. Justice does not come. The answer does not arrive. It's as if the whole world were waiting for a why, and no one could give it. And it is at this point that I want to touch you. There are people who live like this inside. There are people who are walking, working, smiling, posting, living, but the soul has a closed book, a part of the story that does not open, a chapter that does not make sense, a wound that cannot be explained. And we try to open it with force, with argument, with distraction, with control. But it doesn't open, because the question is not, who is able? The question is, who is worthy? And then comes the twist. One of the elders, and that alone is strange because the scene is heavenly, solemn, gigantic. One of the elders looks at John and says, "Do not weep." And notice, before any explanation, before any detail, comes a command that seems small but is profound. Do not weep. As if to say, heaven is not empty. The scroll will not remain sealed. The story did not end with the sealing. And then he announces a title that explodes like thunder. Behold, the Lion of the tribe of Judah has triumphed. When you hear lion, you imagine strength, war, grandeur, roar. You imagine someone who arrives crushing. But when John looks, he does not see a lion. He sees a lamb. And not a cute lamb. John describes it like this, as though it had been slain but standing. This is an impossible image, because it brings together two things that our minds don't like to join: wound and authority, death and victory, weakness and dominion. It's as if heaven is saying, what you want the answer? The answer will not come from the type of power the world understands. It will come from the type of worthiness the world cannot fabricate. And then the Lamb approaches. He does not ask for permission. He does not negotiate. He does not argue. He simply takes the scroll from the hand of the one who is seated on the throne. And when this happens, heaven changes state. The text describes it as if the entire creation had held its breath and then exploded. Songs, prostration, golden bowls full of incense, the prayers of the saints. It's as if all the accumulated prayers of the world had found the right place to fall, and they sing, "Worthy is the Lamb." The word returns. The word that was holding everything back returns. Worthy. And here is the detail that changes everything. Worthy not because he is the most famous, not because he is the most feared, not because he shouts the loudest. Worthy because he won in a way no one else does. Now, before we get into the seals, I need to show you the shock that comes first. Because John doesn't arrive in Revelation as someone curious. John arrives as someone captivated. He says he was on an island, isolated, because of the word and testimony. And he was praying on the Lord's day. And then he hears a voice behind him, a voice like a trumpet. And when he turns around, he sees 7 golden lampstands. And in the middle, someone like the Son of Man. And the description is so strong that you understand why angelic apparition starts with, "Do not be afraid." Because the presence of heaven is not cute, it's otherworldly. John describes long robe, golden sash hair, white like wool, eyes like flames of fire, feet like polished bronze, voice like many waters, 7 stars in his hand, a sword coming from his mouth, face shining like the sun. And he says, "I fell at his feet as though dead." You see? He didn't fall emotional, he fell as though dead, because there is a type of presence that disarms the body, not by violence, but by truth. And then the hand comes upon him, and the phrase, "Do not be afraid." And I want you to keep this in mind. The "do not be afraid" isn't because the scene is calm. It's because the scene is too grand. And the voice says, "I am the first and the last. I was dead, but behold, I am alive forever and ever, and I hold the keys of death and Hades." Keys. Again, authority. The whole story is about that. And then Jesus dictates messages to 7 churches. And here is where many people get lost, because it turns into a list. But I'll give you the core, what retains, what cuts like a knife. These 7 messages are a diagnosis of the human heart. They are not just old letters, they are mirrors. And for a more succinct and viral script, I want to focus on the 3 that hit the hardest: Ephesus, Sardis, Laodicea. Because these 3 get you in different places. Ephesus speaks of love that has grown cold. Sardis speaks of appearance without life. Laodicea speaks of lukewarmness, of living almost, and almost kills a lot of people inside. First, Ephesus. Jesus praises work, perseverance, resistance to evil. But then he says the phrase that hurts, "I have this against you. You have abandoned the love you had at first." This is a silent blow. Because it is possible to do the right thing with the wrong heart. It's possible to produce and without presence. It's possible to obey without fire. And what Jesus asks for is not performance. He asks for a return. Remember from where you have fallen. Repent. Do the works you did at first. That is, go back to the place where it was not just routine, it was an encounter. Second, Sardis. This one is scary because it speaks of reputation. You have the reputation of being alive, but you are dead. This is the picture of a lot of people today. On the outside, functioning. On the inside, extinguished. And Jesus says, wake up. Strengthen what remains. Look at this phrase, what remains. That is, there is still something alive there. But if you continue on autopilot, it will die too. And he promises white garments, a name in the book of life, recognition before the Father. Everything revolves around true identity, not image. Third, Laodicea. This one is famous, and for a reason. Because you are lukewarm. I'm about to spit you out of my mouth. Lukewarm. Neither cold nor hot. And we think that lukewarm is just not very religious. But in practice, it is worse. It is when you do not choose. When you push life along. When you live in a comfortable zone where nothing changes. And Jesus says, buy refined gold. Dress in white. Anoint your eyes so you can see. And then comes one of the strongest images. Here I am. I stand at the door and knock. This is intimate. It is personal. It is almost silent. It is not Jesus breaking into the house. It is Jesus knocking. And then he says, if anyone hears my voice and opens the door, I will come in. That is, there are things that God does not invade. He invites. And this is what makes dignity even more serious. Now after the churches, the story ascends. John sees an open door in heaven, and someone says, "Come up here and I will show you what must happen." And he is taken up. And here comes a sequence of images that seem like a movie. The throne, someone seated, indescribable rainbow around lightning, thunder, 7 lamps, sea of glass, 4 living creatures full of eyes, holy, holy, holy. And every time they give glory, the elders cast their crowns and say, "You are worthy, because you created all things." And then the detail that connects everything to the main theme happens. In the right hand of the one on the throne is the book, sealed, and the question returns, who is worthy? And no one. And John weeps until he hears, "Do not weep." And then, the Lamb. Now then, the seals. And I need you to understand why this captivates. Each open seal is like reality releasing a latch, and what was contained begins to leak. First seal, white horse, conquest, deception, a victory that seems good but carries domination. Second seal, red horse, war, peace withdrawn, violence unleashed. Third seal, black horse, famine, scales, scarcity, an economy turned into a weapon. Fourth seal, pale horse, death, pestilence, disasters. And many people watch this and think, so, it's about the end of the world. But I'll give you a more captivating reading. It's also about what happens when the human heart loses its center. When the center is no longer God, what occupies the throne? Deception, conflict, scarcity, death. This is not just prophecy, it's a pattern, and the text shows this growing like an avalanche. Fifth seal, the cry of the martyrs. They ask for justice. Sixth seal, cosmic signs. The world trembles. The sky darkens. Humanity hides its face. And then comes a phrase that is a perfect hook for the next video. The great day of wrath has come, and who can stand? If you want to continue this series, you end the video here with this hook. But I'll go a bit further, because there is a final scene that gives hope amid the chaos. Before the 7th seal, there is a pause, a preparation. John sees the servants of God being sealed, and he sees a multitude too large to count, from every nation, language, and people. White robes, palms, and they say, "Salvation belongs to our God and to the Lamb." And an elder explains, "These are the ones who came out of the great tribulation." And then comes a promise that honestly is one of the strongest closing statements you can narrate. They shall neither hunger anymore, nor thirst anymore. The sun shall not strike them. God will wipe away every tear from their eyes. This is the heart of the video, because the Apocalypse is not a book meant to give you panic. It is a book meant to show you who is on the throne, and that changes fear. Now I want to tie everything together with a question that creates commentary and makes the audience see themselves within the script. If the world seeks power, heaven seeks dignity. If the world is impressed by fame, heaven is moved by presence. And here comes the question, are you living like Ephesus and doing a lot but with love growing cold? Are you living like Sardis, seeming alive but dead inside? Or like Laodicea, lukewarm, pushing life, postponing decisions? And now, the final, most heavy question. Which phrase hit you the most? Do not weep, do not fear, or behold, I stand at the door and knock. Comment the phrase, because sometimes your answer is the key to your next step. And if you want part 2, I'll do it in the most requested and most viral way. The 4 horsemen, what they mean and why they are already happening inside people. Without making anything up. No cheap mysticism. Just text and truth. Subscribe, because the next video will shake the image you have had since childhood.